What is up, football fans? This is Danny Austin. I am here in Calgary for the second episode of the Live from the 55 podcast here, brought to you by the Nation Network in smoky Calgary. It's Sunday afternoon, so we're going to do a little bit of a wrap-up of the first weekend of the CFL season. Full disclosure, this is dropping Monday morning, but we are recording before the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Edmonton Elks play this afternoon. That's obviously disappointing. That's a game that I'm actually really interested in, but we have three other games to talk about. We have a couple fun guests. We got Shawn currently trying to figure out where he is going to play this season. Was with the BC Lions before being released, but he is going to be joining us. Really looking forward to chatting with him. He's obviously a guy who played with the Stampeders the last 2 years, so I know pretty well, and I'm very grateful. And then coming out of Winnipeg, we've got Darrin Bauming, the kind of do-everything host of Bonfire Sports. There's no one who knows more about the Bombers than him, but I know he watched all the games this week, and just generally excited to talk to him. Darren's one of my close friends, and is a guy I do a lot of work with, but he's also just one of my favorite people to talk about the league with. So yeah, really excited to have those two. But before we get going, I think probably I should start talking about the Stampeders home opener. They lost 25-15 to the BC Lions. I know, just speaking with some fans over the weekend, there was a lot of concern about the way the Stampeders played. I can't say that I blame everyone for that. I did not think that the offense looked like it was clicking at all. Jake Mayer did not look like he was on the same page as his receivers. I'll say on the other side of the ball, I actually thought that the defense played better than, maybe they're being given credit for. I don't think the defensive line put Vernon Adams Jr. under a ton of pressure. But other than that, I honestly don't think there can be any huge complaints about the way the defense played. It was more the offense just not being able to stay on the field, not being able to get long drives going. But I will argue that maybe surprisingly to me, it has seemed like the even bigger story out of that game was the attendance. There were less than 18,000 people in the stands at McMahon Stadium. I've seen stories by, the Daily Hive. I've seen it sort of covered all over from media that, to be honest, rarely ever touches the CFL or rarely ever touches the Stampeders. So that's been a little bit surprising to me. I will say that, I've covered the team since 2016. Anyone who's paying attention knows that this decline in attendance has been gradual, but it has been ongoing, and it's been sort of happening year after year after year. Speaking with people around McMahon last week, I thought, to be honest, 18,000 was a good number compared to what some people were predicting. It was a hot day. It was a Thursday. We should just not have Thursday night games during the school year here in Calgary. It's not a recipe for getting a big crowd out. People are not ready to pay attention to football. People aren't bringing their families on a Thursday night. It's never going to work, particularly when it's the Lions, but I don't think if it was the Riders, we would have seen a huge crowd anyways. It's just not a recipe for good attendance in a gate-driven league. I don't really understand why it happens. But I don't think that's the only thing going on here. I think that we are seeing a gradual decline in terms of the Stampeders and their audience share. I think that COVID accelerated that. I think that we have seen a lack of investment in sort of on-the-ground marketing around the city. I think that you've also seen a sort of corresponding increase in the money that is being spent on sort of digital advertising and digital marketing, and that's super important. But I think we really do need to speak realistically about the Stampeders. I think there are still people who think that they're a team that's going to draw 27 or 28,000 to a regular season game, and it's just not. That hasn't happened for years. We're going to get a big crowd for Labor Day. There will be a little bit of a boost for the Riders, a bigger boost if the Riders are good. Beyond that, I think we're looking at 20 to 21,000 for most games, and I don't think we can be surprised by 18,000, even though it is the smallest crowd in years. The question is what you do to reverse that. I will say that pregame, I went by Stamp's House, sort of the revamped, rejuvenated, renovated red and white club. It was amazing. Jay McNeil, the new VP of Business Operations for the team, has done just an incredible job. I have seen more energy coming out of the stadium from the business side than I have in years under Jay. I'm really, really impressed. And I do think I wrote this in my 10 takeaways column, but there's a lot of work to be done, but that doesn't mean that the work hasn't started. And I think that we need to give the Stampeders credit, and we need to give their business operations team credit for getting it going. I don't know, unless you replace the stadium, I think that there's always going to be a pretty big block for a lot of people to coming out to games. And I think that is only getting more and more pronounced. But I think that the work that can be done has started, and I'm impressed. So concerning attendance, I think we all know that, and I don't think that there's any question there. I don't think we should sugarcoat it, but I also think that we need to acknowledge that you can't, you have to do the work at some point, and I don't think the work was getting done for a number of years, or at least was not getting done properly. And I think that the turnaround has already begun. I don't know that that is going to translate into more people in the seats this year, maybe even next year. But under Jay's leadership, I do have a lot of faith in this team getting it done properly. It's really going to be tough seeing an empty McMahon Stadium for a lot of games, or half empty, or even more than half empty. And that's what we saw this weekend. And I know that it hurt a lot of football fans in Calgary to see the stadium like that, to see sort of Calgary football, the community get kind of ridiculed a little bit by fans in other cities or across the country. So it was a tough opener. It was a tough game to watch. It was a tough game to be at. But all we can do is, hope that more fans are out next time, and that these crowds do get better, and that, that groundswell of support builds. People go to a game, they have a good time, they come back. That's what you want. And I'm still optimistic that we're going to get that. So that's that for now. We're going to toss over to, I believe, Darrin Bauming. Darrin, you are not in Winnipeg. You are outside of Winnipeg at a lake. I'm very jealous. How is it? It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's been incredibly hot here in southern Manitoba over the last couple of weeks. It's cooled down a little bit, but still really nice and warm. And yeah, hey, if you got a couple days, between games, might as well get away when you can, right?
No doubt, man. Did you watch the games this weekend? As many as you could?
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of them. Looking forward to Saskatchewan, Edmonton tonight. That's for sure. BC looked good. I was really impressed with Vernon Adams. I think everybody was impressed with Vernon Adams. But I was just as impressed with Mizell, their rookie tailback. Everybody, lots of conversation, Danny, right, about James Butler leaving, and with no Nathan Rourke there anymore, how important the run game could be in BC. He put a lot of people's concerns to rest. Had a really strong game, but I'm very surprised with what I saw from the Calgary Stampeders offense. And I'm really less surprised, but also as concerned about Nick Arbuckle and the Ottawa Redblacks. Neither of those offenses looked like they could get anything going. They looked very one-dimensional, and both teams, Ottawa in particular, left a ton of points on the field. Nick Arbuckle looked, frankly, bad. Jake Mayer looked like he was up against a legit defense for the first time in his life. That's at least how it appeared to me. I think Calgary is still a good football team. I think Ottawa is still a good football team, but getting Jeremiah Masoli back to Ottawa, I think will really give them a punch in the arm. He's a legit starter in this league, a legit star quarterback in this league for my dollar. The Calgary Stampeders, who knows? Is Winnipeg's defense that good? Or pardon me, was the BC Lions defense that good? With TJ Lee and making a lot of plays, Gary Peters making a lot of plays, good pressure up front, and pretty much keeping Kadeem Carey and Peyton Logan in check. I'm curious to see what Calgary brings next week.
Yeah, so it's interesting with the Stampeders. They've always been bad in week one. And I don't want to in any way make excuses, but I asked Dave Dickinson about it, and he said this is something that we have to address in training camps going forward, because they basically don't play their starters, but they look terrible for the better part of 3.5 quarters. There's no sugarcoating it. Jake wasn't looking downfield at all. Most of their passes, Derek Taylor, he was like, this is boring to watch. It's just little dinky donkey passes where they then try to get 5 yards after carry. And it just wasn't working. But it's not just that it's boring, it's that it's ineffective. And then the whole thing with the CFL is you want to stretch the field and use the big field out there, and they just weren't doing it. But it's weird. It's just, this is a what have you done for me lately sport. And because Jake was so bad in the West semifinal last year, I know it's these 2 games are really, really sticking out. And I still think that there's need to be patient with Jake, and but they couldn't practice today because of the smoke. So how much improvement are they going to have week to week? They just happen to be playing a pretty, what looks like an Ottawa team that doesn't scare me. I'll say that this week. So they might still be okay. But I left that game first time in 7 years, really wondering if this Stampeders team is going to be a contender this year, because I'll tell you this, we've talked off air, we've talked all, none of us were we all thought there was going to be a big drop off in BC. I'm not sure there is. If Vernon can play like that week after week, and consistency has always been his issue, but if he can play like that, and that defense, like they've got a good D line. They come at you in waves. I like their defensive backs. I think that BC team is a good team. I think, and I know it's one game, and I don't want to overreact, but I think Vernon Adams, of everyone in the league, had the best week. He'd be, it's way too early to do MOP power rankings, but I'll give him my number one spot after one game.
Yeah, I'll maybe counter that to keep in mind Zach Collaros throwing 3 touchdowns and 200 yards in the first quarter of their game against Hamilton. Finished with 364 yards, I think it was clean, no interceptions. Looked just really.
Yeah, there was the weird fumble, but that doesn't really count against him. It was
sure. There were times in that game, just to jump over to Winnipeg Hamilton, where you were thinking somebody was going to cough up the ball on every single play. Hamilton really hung in there to make it a pretty interesting game, a wild game, especially in the second half when things looked to be completely out of hand in the first half. But to your point about the Calgary Stampeders, I too am wondering, if this is just early season, we don't want to go into the third and fourth and fifth pages of the playbook, or if something is actually wrong. Jake Maier didn't knock anybody's socks off last year. Let's not pretend that that's the case. And will he get back to it this year? He stole Bo Levi Mitchell's job, to be blunt about it. And I don't think that was an easy decision by Dave Dickinson or John Huffnagel or anybody inside that building. We know those two guys are the ones making the ultimate decision. So, was it Bo Levi Mitchell's injury history? Was it we need to go younger? I really wonder how general managers and head coaches in the CFL look at the window to win, because, in the National Hockey League, you talk about windows to win. I'm here in Winnipeg. They got Connor Hellebuck and Pierre-Luc Dubois and Mark Scheifele and a bunch of guys that are on expiring contracts. And it's, 2023 was our window. Now that's closing. Now they got to trade a bunch of these guys and maybe start from scratch. So for the Stampeders, was it let's get young, or is it, hey, it's the CFL. Anybody can win any season. So I've always said that many teams may keep things vanilla in the first couple games because they don't really want to open everything up and put everything they have on film. Does that mean they're not going to call a play they think will work in the fourth quarter to win a game? No, they may do that. They probably will do that. You want to win. Every game matters. But I do wonder if, intricate offenses with a lot of weaponry and different ways to beat you, like the Calgary Stampeders have. I'm such a fan of Reggie Begelton and what he's able to do in so many different ways. You told me about Odom's Dukes and to keep an eye out for him in that slot back spot. And you were right, pulled in a touchdown and looked like he's big, he's fast, he's got nice hands. It looks to be a nice piece to build around. And then you have the 1-2 punch. I mean, it's truly a 1A, 1B in my opinion. Maybe the best running back in the league in Kadeem Carey, and somebody that can just make guys miss and is so dangerous in open space in Peyton Logan. And a pretty good veteran offensive line. I think Calgary will eventually get it going, whether it's the decision to keep things vanilla or if, BC just kind of had their number. Everyone's talking about Vernon Adams. BC's defense was very good in week 100%. 1.
And that's the thing. I mean, when you talk about Reggie, Reggie just wasn't getting open downfield. So they were having to give him those shorter passes, which was why it was boring. And I will say, look, every team has injuries, so I always, hate introducing this caveat, but Zach Williams was hurt. He was not playing in that game. Honestly, Josh Coker would be their starting left tackle right now. Their offensive line was not what it is going to look when healthy. So I don't know if that's an excuse or an explanation, but the run game should be significantly better than it was. And they fell behind, so they couldn't run the ball as much as they would like. So there are excuses, but I also just honestly, at some point it's what you put on the field. And that's to jump to Winnipeg a little bit. It was my one takeaway. Despite the craziness of the second half, I am just one of those guys who it's partially trolling, but I'm constantly waiting for the Bombers to fall off, for their old guys to look old. And I just like the first half, and I was like, oh, they're not going anywhere. They
Well,
look
Danny,
exactly as good and dominant as anyone as they have in the last couple of years.
yeah, I mean, Adam Biggill was running all over the field, and people were wondering, okay, he missed every single day of training camp. He's 30 whatever years old. He's been in the league. This is his 13th season in pro football. 13th. And he's still playing incredibly at an incredibly high level. Willie Jefferson, he's in his 30s now, spent his first winter here in Winnipeg as he moved his family from Texas to the chilly confines of southern Manitoba. And 2 pass knockdowns, 2 sacks, forced fumble. Like, he was an absolute force. And that was with Jackson Jeffcoat, the bookend that everybody says, well, if you take out, if you focus on Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat will eat your lunch. Well, Jeffcoat left the game, I think, in the first quarter, and they had a rookie there and a rotation of guys filling in. That didn't stop Willie Jefferson from being in Bo Levi Mitchell's face all night long.
I think it was Bo who told me last year, just casually on the road at one point, he was like, as long as they have Big Hill and Jefferson, he's like, they're going to be the team to beat. Like, those two are there. It's not like they're not talked about. It's not like anyone doesn't know that those guys are good who follows the CFL, but there's almost like no way to quantify just genuinely how incredible they are. And seeing it again, like, me, like, I love trolling Winnipeg. There's nothing I love more. And I'm just like, they're in their 30s. Like, that's the big question. And it just doesn't appear to be a question. Like, they haven't lost a step.
Yeah, the age, I think, is at the forefront of the conversation here in Winnipeg, because, for your viewers that, maybe aren't on the daily ball here in Winnipeg, this was one of the most boring, uneventful, unnewsworthy training camps that I ever remember for this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team. And I've been covering this team daily since 2011, when Paul LaPolice was the head coach the first time. 3 stints here now as a coach, at least in my tenure. But the age is, I think, at the forefront, because Stanley Bryant and Jamarcus Hardrick are, getting up there in age. Patrick Neufeld, another starting offensive lineman, is up there. The only position they have, I would say, that isn't in that 30 age range, and that's kind of that magic number in pro football, is their starting running back in Winnipegger, and obviously a Canadian, Brady Oliveira, coming off a 1,000-yard rushing season.
Had 106 on Friday. Yes, it was Friday.
Yeah, I think he hit a career high for himself in combined yards. He was in that 165, 170 yard range. So, they used him really effectively in the bubble screen game, and he's showing to be a weapon. As a draft pick, second round draft pick of this team just about 3 years ago. So, age on the offensive line, not a ton of age in the receiving core, but it's there. Nick Dembski, I think, is as good as ever. But he's been
ridiculous.
Yeah, he's been in the league a good amount of time. Kenny Lawler has been in the league a little bit, but I wouldn't say, on the older side. If anything, Dalton Shawn, rookie season, leads the league in receiving. Defensively, the D line is old. Jake Thomas has been he's the longest tenured Blue Bomber on the entire team. As a Canadian defensive tackle, the 2 ends we just talked about, Big Hill, in the middle, and the defensive backs, Alden Darby, very veteran player, Winston Rose, unavailable. I think he's on the 6-game injured list to start the season. He's a little bit older. Brandon Alexander's had a real run with injuries. He, their starting safety, a little bit older, been in the league a long time. So it's a veteran group. It's a very age heavy group. But there's pros and cons to that. If they can stay healthy, that's the con. Then, that veteran experience, I think, helps a heck of a lot.
Sticking with that game, it's a hard one to talk about, because, look, there was a lot of weird stuff that happened, but how in general did Bo look for Hamilton? Because, I've obviously covered him really closely here in Calgary. And the reality is, I don't think he was injured at the start of last year. I just think he was missing throws. It was his mechanics were off. Something was going on, and he didn't look great. But then he came in at the end of that West semifinal, and you were like, holy cow. When this guy's on, there's just no one in the league. He still has the arm. He can still do it. He's the best gunslinger around. But he did that for 2 drives. So how in your opinion, seeing him up close, how was he?
Early, I thought he looked rusty or he looked off. Made a couple throws. Demario Houston, a young defensive back in the Blue Bombers starting secondary, he had 2 interceptions. One came on a 2-point conversion attempt. The other was really early in the game where Bo Levi Mitchell threw an out route to the sideline, and it was just a bad throw. It was a bad decision to make. I hang that. Some picks you're like, okay, the pressure was there. Maybe it's on the O-line or the receiver. Maybe this was a decision to throw the football that was not smart.
It almost looked like he didn't see the DB, right? Like it's like he thought that the DB was on the sideline. I don't understand.
Or he didn't get all of it, didn't get everything he wanted to on it.
Yeah.
Is the arm strength still there? That's going to be a question. That's always in the back of people's minds when they watch Bo Levi Mitchell. How is the shoulder? How is the arm strength? When you're 12 years old in Katy, Texas, and you're able to sling it. And then you're 16 and everyone's watching and you're able to sling it. And then you're in pro football and everyone's watching, you're able to sling it. And then suddenly you're in your 30s, 33 years of age, after a couple shoulder surgeries and a lot of injuries. That natural thing that you've always been able to do maybe isn't quite as much zip as it used to have. That can probably creep in. So was it something like that, or was it a bad decision? Of course we will never know, but Bo didn't knock anybody's socks off in week 1. Who does Calgary have week 2?
Ottawa.
Yeah. So a much better matchup for them. Ottawa's defense is good. They're going to bring pressure with I think a very talented defensive front. But he had his work cut out for him at IG Field. 30,000, I think it was over 30,000 fans there. It was loud when he was on the field.
It's the toughest assignment for a team that has all these new moving pieces. Like it's honestly, anyone would have looked bad against Winnipeg, and I'm not just saying that. Week 1, that's not what you want, and especially when just the amount of free agency that they sort of engaged in. That was
Duke Williams. Every receiver in this Ticats receiving core is new to him, and obviously the offensive line too. Everything's new, so you never know until you play a game. You can do all the preseason games or live scrimmages, whatever, until you see live bullets under the lights. You never really know. So I'm definitely not writing off Bo Levi Mitchell like many people did on my post game show. Commenters and that sort of thing. He's done this and that. I'm not doing that on a guy that is suddenly in a very new surrounding. Hamilton is an incredibly well-crafted football team, top to bottom, continuity everywhere from the GM's office to the coaching staff. And you can tell that they are hosting the Grey Cup this November because they went out and spent a lot of money on a lot of different position groups around Bo Levi Mitchell to make him a good player. He went after Tim White early and often. The connection wasn't quite there. Duke Williams was pretty pedestrian. James Butler, I think, it'll take some time for Hamilton to get used to having a tailback. Like they did some things with Don Jackson, but they've always been a team that doesn't really run the football like many others in the league do. So will they use him that way? I think it's kind of training wheels for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Maybe they'll be able to open things up and show what they're truly capable of, against some different teams. Yeah, Winnipeg's a tough one, but as the season goes on.
Well, and you don't need to go 18-0 to win the East. That's for sure, right? Like, right. And we didn't get. I don't want to just sit here and criticize the schedule makers. How were the Grey Cup champions not playing on week 1? Like, how are the Toronto Argonauts not scheduled to play this weekend? I don't understand it even a little bit. But then that Ottawa Montreal game, like you said it. I mean, it's hard to draw too many conclusions like what it says about Montreal, because I do think the turnovers by Ottawa were like those weren't all great Montreal defense. There were some mistakes out there by Ottawa, and as you said, do we have any timeline? Like I'm genuinely asking, I should know this, but like when are they hoping for Mazzoli to be back?
Yeah, they said he'll miss the first 2 games, and then Ottawa has a bye in week 3, so they're giving him that 3 weeks of the season. I don't even know if this is related to his knee injury last year, or if this is something new that's crept up. You know how training camp is: hamstrings, groins, some of those soft tissue issues.
That's not young, right? Like stuff pops up. It can be related to that without being that, right?
But if I could write a lead for your newspaper, Danny, it would be this: the Ottawa Redblacks need Jeremiah Masoli back as soon as humanly possible. They looked really bad without him.
It's a team that I had picked to be the worst team in the league. I had Montreal I had them as the lowest on my like little internal power rankings, just because there was so much upheaval, and it's good that they got the ownership in place, but Eugene Lewis was quite vocal about
Mhm.
the situation there being a bit of a mess. So I thought that they were going to be awful this year, but I will also like tip of the hat to Cody Fajardo, who looked better than he did last year.
Mhm.
I'm not saying he's going to be an MOP candidate necessarily, but like I I had ridden him off a little bit, and
Sure.
ultimately he got the job done. He wasn't exceptional, but threw for 260 yards. I think that like there's something there.
Only in the CFL you see a head coach and offensive coordinator get reunited, the remarriage with the starting quarterback in Cody Fajardo. So will Jason Moss, Cody Fajardo 2.0 work? Because it didn't 1.0 in Saskatchewan. I'm curious about that. Losing Geno Lewis, I think, probably had Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo as upset as anybody in Montreal. But they showed some nice weapons. I think Mack was the one receiver there, the young guy that they got. We'll see if that comes together. Getting William Stanback back and healthy for the start of the season is a really nice thing. He's one of the best players in the CFL, and to get injured, what was it, first drive of the first quarter of week 1 last year, really kind of I think painted a picture in Ottawa that was what you ended up getting. And that was, concern about whether they're going to be able to compete all season long. That said, just like last year, they lost pretty much all of their games, pretty much all of them by like 4 points or less. And last night, Ottawa left points on the field. Arbuckle, I think it was Jalen Acklin who he missed, skied it a little bit over him at the end of the first half. They left points on the field. And if you're a team like Ottawa that just needs to get a little bit of positive momentum with a new head coach in Bobby Dice, who's incredibly experienced, a Winnipeg native, in his first full non-interim head coaching job with Ottawa, I think just getting those good feelings going is going to be very important. That's why I look at them hosting the Calgary Stampeders. That's going to be one of the best games in week 2 because it's going to be two desperate teams trying to get something going. But
And anyone Ottawa, I'm not on the road this year, but I have been for the last 6. And like Ottawa is, because my mom's from there, so I get to see my family, is my favorite road trip. But the games are never easy for Calgary there. Calgary does not play particularly well in Ottawa. I don't know if it's like that midsummer humidity in Ontario. Like I don't know what it is, but the Stamps, like that game should not be taken as Calgary is going to come in and get it together.
Right.
They've already missed one of their 3 practices of the week today because of forest fire smokes. Plus, it's Ottawa, which is traditionally a tough place. It's a long flight. That's an opportunity for the Redblacks. If I would not. There's no part of me that thinks the Stampeders are going to be able to bounce back enough from week 1 that should be treated as them being a heavy favorite.
Just based on week 1, I give the Ottawa Redblacks defense the early advantage over what I saw from the Stampeders offense. What we'll see from Calgary's defense against Ottawa's offense, you probably have to give it to Calgary early, but Calgary's defense didn't look particularly good in week 1 either. I just think if it's a Nick Arbuckle run offense in Ottawa, I don't know if they're going to be able to get too much going unless he pulls his head out of his what and becomes a completely different player on the field in week 2 than what we saw last night. I've said it. I'll say it again. I hate to rag on a guy after a bad game, but Nick Arbuckle was bad in week 1.
I mean, there's no point in not saying it. It's fact, and
I just didn't have to say it twice.
No, and I mean, I can say that from a Calgary perspective, just talking to fans, to talk to people, like there is real concern about that defensive line. I've got Shawn Lemon come on after you, but like they let Shawn Lemon and Fuller and Armalade walk. 2 guys who were very productive last season, and brought in James Waters and Julian Hauser, who are both like guys with good reputations. Like they are absolutely capable players. There's no doubting it. I imagine that they are going to make an impact, but they didn't in week 1. And it was like everyone had just been waiting to jump on that storyline. Because you let those 2 guys walk. Lemon's still sitting out there. What's Jeff Goat's deal? Do you know how serious that injury is?
No, but Jeff Coat, for the type of player he's been when healthy, incredibly impactful on the defensive line. When not healthy, those times are kind of creeping up to. Sorry, just want to silence my phone. Pardon me for that.
My mom called me a minute and a half into my first episode. I hadn't silenced my phone, and my mom FaceTimed. It was brutal.
See, that's my sister, because she's coming in from Toronto to Winnipeg for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary this weekend. So
happy anniversary to Darren's parents. That's very exciting.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty great thing. So your question about the Calgary defensive front, like their work was cut out for them, because they were facing a very new look offense with a ton of weapons in that receiving core in BC.
Dominic Grimes he might be number one. Like
they threw to him 13 times too. Like they just didn't stop. They found him early, then they kept going. Jordan Maximic, BC's offensive coordinator, has shown the ability to do it over and over and over again with different types of quarterbacks. Michael Riley, Nathan Rourke, and now most recently in BC, Vernon Adams Jr. VA looks like a different guy. He looks like this, dangerous, fleet of foot, strong-armed, accurate, smart quarterback that I think we'd seen flashes of through, his couple stops across the CFL and most recently in Montreal, but definitely not consistently. He had an outstanding preseason. You can hear, and you talk to anybody in Vancouver or Southern BC, they've raved about what they've seen in Vernon Adams. You're like, okay, maybe that's because they want to kind of, shy away from the news that is no longer Nathan Rourke being there. We'll be okay. Look how good Vernon Adams has been. But then, hey, week one, in a legit matchup, Vernon Adams looked really good. So, it
was no mistake that in the offseason they came right out like very early, like December or January, when it was clear Rourke was leaving, and said Vernon Adams is the starter here. And him bouncing around, doing all of that. Like, it's not, I genuinely believe it is not fair to evaluate a quarterback who didn't get a training camp as the starter. Like, they need that. And that confidence that they had in him, and that probably ability to really work with him to get ready for the season, is going to pay dividends. And I think we saw that it did. Vernon is always good against Calgary. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it's like, this is a team that he seems to, like, Mike Rose just can't quite tackle him. And Mike Rose can tackle everybody. But full marks to Vernon. And then I just think Dominic Grimes, like, there's only so many receivers like him. He was out jumping guys. His route running is so good. Yeah. He was the number one guy with Burnham not there, and just totally fit the role and stepped up. So,
and they were without Keon Hatcher. It's not just being without a guy, but not having that attention draw away from your other weapons. Lucky Whitehead left the game early. I think he came back, but it wasn't like they were full force. Yeah, it wasn't like they were full force. So, that all said, I do want to say this. Yes, they said Vernon Adams is our starter from day one, but they did trade assets to Hamilton to get Dane Evans. And Dane Evans, he turned the ball over like a maniac in 2022, but he is an experienced quarterback. He is he has started a lot of games in this league, including a Grey Cup. To go and spend assets on an experienced number two, you could tell that BC wasn't putting all of their eggs into the Vernon Adams basket. I don't think it would have been prudent to do that, but I think it's important to keep that in mind, that, they weren't, they were less prepared last year with Nathan Rourke. It's like, okay, Michael O'Connor is our number two. Well, Michael O'Connor's not even in pro football anymore. So, I
feel bad.
It's been fascinating to see BC take shape, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. They may be number two right now in the West. They may be number two in the league, to be perfectly honest with you. But we will have to see. But dude, thank you so much, man. I called you in last minute here. We are going to be trying to do videos sort of throughout the year, the two of us. So people should keep an eye out for that. But I do hope to have you on, because there's no one I enjoy talking about football about as much. I screwed up that sentence. I like talking about football with you, buddy. That's all I'm trying to say. So thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And have a great time at the cabin, man. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight. And always good, Danny. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Cheers, buddy. All right. Well, thank you again to Darrin Bauming from Bonfire Sports. You guys should definitely check out his content. I imagine he will be a fairly regular guest here, because a good friend of mine, and he's really smart about football. And I do think that the Winnipeg perspective is important just because of sort of their place as kind of the top team in the league. We now are going to be jumping. We're just waiting for him to come in, and Shawn Lemon, longtime CFL veteran, formerly with the Stampeders, currently looking for a team. He's going to join us and come in and talk. And it's deeply frustrating here that I can't get any stats from the CFL website. This is a recurring issue that the CFL is currently apparently addressing. But I just want to look at Shawn Lemon's stats because he is closing in on 100 career sacks, which very, very few players have ever done. So it's, I don't know, Shawn Lemon's a CFL legend. He has bounced around the league and is currently, again, I suspect we're going to see Lemon end up somewhere very soon. I think that he is simply like too skilled and too good a pass rusher to not be in the league right now. And this is a guy who had 14 sacks last year, 5 forced fumbles. There's no question that he is still productive. He was the West Division's most outstanding defensive player nominee. Shawn Lemon's a pretty amazing player and has had an incredible career. And I think he's logging in any second now.
I did not do this on purpose, by the way.
That's hilarious.
I just realized I had a Stampeder shirt on.
It's the first thing I noticed when you came on screen. I'm not gonna lie. But Shawn, tell me, man, how's life? Where are you right now?
I'm in Maryland right now.
Okay.
Back home, just waiting on things to see. Hopefully, things get signed soon.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it's been probably it's been 3 weeks, a month since sort of you are no longer with the Lions. Is it basically like, okay, stay in the gym, stay ready?
Yeah, no, I've been working out every day and, staying ready and, doing my rounds to see what's available and see what's out there. Yeah, it's been tough though, because I'm really a football guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not one of the guys that just play pro football just to play pro football. Like I really love everything about, playing football, and, I put the time in, the work in, and film study, working out, and just making sure my body's right. I really enjoy the process of football as well. So
yeah, that's something, to be honest, like while you were in Calgary the last 2 years, Dave Dickinson talked about like the amount of work that you put into your body. Like he says, is sort of unrivaled. He said the whole off season, it's nutrition, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, like, it's something that
I have a nutritionist off season. I get massage stuff. Like I'm in the season throughout the week. I always just try to work on myself and work on my body. What can I be better at? And honestly, I feel like it could have easily been a 20 sack season for me this year, and it still can be. I've never felt as good as I feel now.
That's amazing. And like you came into camp fully healthy. Like I don't really know what happened with the Lions, and you may not want to talk about it, and that's fair.
No,
but like,
it's fine. I was easily having, even the defensive coordinator, they spoke out, said that Shawn looked great in camp. It wasn't anything to do with his production or his play. I was easily having best camp of my career, I would say. Winning my one-on-ones, winning in team reps, just being a leader, helping out some of the younger guys, and but they wanted to change the ratio because the offense was struggling a little bit in camp. So, when I got cut, the phone call to come up there to get cut, in my mind, I've never spoke about this, but I thought I was calling to get extension.
Really?
I'm thinking I was with TJ Lee, and it was me, TJ Lee, and Gary Peters. We were just having lunch, and I was like, yeah, they just asked me to come up to the office, and they're like, oh, they're probably gonna extend your contract. Like, none of us thought that I was gonna get cut.
Yeah.
And then when I walked in the room, RP was there, and Ryan Rigmaiden was there, and he was just like, yeah, man, we're going to let you go. And I started laughing. I thought it was a joke. I'm like, really? And RP's like, I wish it was a joke. And I said, yeah, man, you got to change our ratio, and we're going to go Canadian at the end. And I was just stunned, and I just know what perception of it looks like, because like there's no media coverage at our practices.
Not NBC.
So anybody can easily assume that Shawn Lemon didn't show up in the best shape of his life. Shawn Lemon didn't look good in practice. Or the one thing that always gets me is fans and people around the league think that I'm a locker room issue or something, or he did something, you know what I mean? Which is not the case, but it's too much. It's not enough clarity when it comes to situations with myself with, what actually went down. But yeah, no, they just wanted to change the ratio. Nothing to do with the skill set for me.
No, that's good to get that out there, because honestly, like, it's one of the funny things where I see those perceptions of you as well.
Right.
Like the locker room thing. It's like, okay, well, you've played for a bunch of teams, but like they also bring you back, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I played for a lot of teams.
It's proof
2
that you're not
times,
an
3
issue.
times. So it's, if you're a bad of a guy or a locker room, and I have a lot of friends throughout the league, and so everywhere I go, there's a group of friends that I've always connect with and still talk to. So no, I've never been a locker room issue anywhere that I've been. I don't know where that perception came from, but it is what it is. You can't control those things. All I can do is control the person that I am day to day.
Absolutely. I was talking to Derek Dennis, and Derek said he was like, the thing about sort of not having a team at this point is he kind of knows that he's got to wait a week or two. Like, he's got to, like, things have to play out. You're probably
Right.
not going to get signed right away. Is that sort of similar? I mean, I know when you got released by Edmonton, Calgary picked you up right away, so it might be different at defensive end.
But the thing was, in Edmonton, I knew I was going to get cut. Like, I knew I was going to get cut. So I'm like, every day I'm in practice. Like, I understand the business side of things, but this BC thing caught me completely off guard. But in Edmonton, I knew I was going to get cut. I didn't get any reps with the ones. Anytime I would make a good move in practice, they would like fast forward it and act like it never happened. So I just started recording my reps and sent it to Mace the whole entire time I was in camp. So I was already 10 steps ahead of it. So he's like, as soon as you get cut, we're bringing you here. So I was like, all right. So, I kind of already knew in my mind that, I was going to go to Calgary as soon as that happened.
Yeah. Have you been at all? I know you're not going to be able to say which teams or anything, but have you been in conversation with teams?
Yeah, I've been in conversation with at least 4 clubs right now, but they all want to see, everybody leaves training camp and everybody looks good because it goes from practice to, preseason where the guys play like 2 series. But you want to see what you got, what you have, evaluate those guys. So you just got to give it time and process. And people know what I can do. And, I'll be at some point in the season, some team's going to be out there not getting to the quarterback. And, you got a double-digit sack guy just sitting at home whenever you're ready. So,
yeah. What would be, or like, what would you be looking for in a team? Is it just opportunity, or, I mean,
just all depends. Just an opportunity. I'm not opposed to going to a situation with a younger group as well, because I can help a D line. Like I feel like I helped our D line in Calgary. Like easily, we had 3 out of 4. I know I would have been in the CFL top 50 players this year. But 3 out of 4.
You had 14 sacks last year. You would have been top 15 easily.
Yeah, I'm saying 3 out of 4 was in. Well, Flo was there, Mike Rose was there, and I'm assuming I would have been in there too. So that's 3 out of 4 in the D line top 50 CFL players. Yeah. So just the growth that just bringing and just talking to guys, and like I'm just I take pride in that. I take pride in taking guys like Flo, Isaac Berglund, those guys. Isaac was our backup last year at 8 sacks.
I know.
Just that confidence, me instilling that confidence in them and letting them know that they can do this. You know what I mean? So I just take pride in helping out guys as well.
Were you guys surprised like that? You said probably 3 guys in the top 50. That list is a little bit ridiculous,
right?
To be honest with you, but were you surprised that like 3 guys in the top 53, a really elite defensive line, that there was so much change? Like, you don't often see a team have a.
I was surprised. I thought, I've always wanted to finish out my career in Calgary, but I was very surprised because it's like 22 sacks and a year post-pandemic season, and I got cut, missed the whole training camp, and last season when I rotated me the whole season, and I honestly feel like I didn't win Defensive Player of the Year because they sat me that last game of the season. And when they brought it to me to sit down the last game of the season, it was no question. It was like, it's best for the team, so I'll do it. If you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. I didn't get a chance to go out there and play against Saskatchewan, the worst offensive line in the league, that our backup D-line got 7 sacks against. So, I mean, I've been selfless for Calgary, and I wanted to be back there, but a contract was never offered to me to pursue that. And they will never come out and say that, of course. And even now, they wouldn't bring me back. I don't know why, but they won't. So, yeah. My Coach Munson wants me back, I would say. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, you're a popular guy around Calgary, so it would seem. Yeah. I don't want to be bashing the current guys or anything like that, but I mean, you said it. Like, there's not going to be anyone on the market with your resume, reputation, and like you did it last year. Like, it's not like you're some older guy who's been declining. You had arguably your best year last year, right?
Yeah, but it's tough at times, is because I'm not held to the same. If I don't get double-digit sacks, or even in this case, I do have double-digit sacks, I'm still out of the league. So it's like you can't control those things. There's guys and other players that get 6 sacks and 5 sacks, and I think people get bored with consistency. It's not the new trick pony, or this guy came out of nowhere. We found this guy. So, it is what it is. I can't control those things. All I can control is the product I put on the field.
How many are you at for your career now? Like, it's over 90, right?
92. Yeah.
92. I mean, you getting to 100 that's got to mean something, yeah?
I want to so bad. But I can't control not having an opportunity right now. Just stay ready, and if it hope that it comes. Yeah,
and it sounds like there are opportunities out there. It sounds like you've had those conversations, and
there's teams interested for sure. It's just a matter of when and when the plug's gonna get pulled, or a phone call come in.
And you could be ready. You could be on a plane tomorrow if the call
My
came.
bags are still packed. All I did was, when I got cut from BC, I took stuff out, washed it, refolded it, and my bags are still packed.
That's amazing.
It's just they're still packed, and it's all I got to do is just put my PlayStation in there.
Yeah,
and
you still have that thing where you just want to play, eh?
I just love football. I love football. I wake up, I get my breakfast, have my shake, and I'm on the way to the gym. I'm not a guy that works a job in the off season or anything. I train for football in the off season. I've done that since I was, came out of college. This is what I've done in the off season. When I was coming up in school, I would grade teachers would ask me, like, what do you want to do when I'm going to play professional football? I don't have a backup plan. So it's just something it's not, I don't just do it just something to fun or do. It's really a part of me,
Yeah. Did you watch the CFL games this weekend?
Every one of them. Every one of them. Ready for the SAS game to come on, like every one of them. I don't, even in season, when I'm in season, I watch all of them.
Yeah.
I watch pregame show. I watch halftime show. Like, I'm up to date with the tweets. I read all the articles on different teams. I listen to the interviews throughout the week. It sets the tone for, even when I'm playing. It's really a cheat code for players when you play. If you watch the practice interviews, post-game interviews on what they want to work on, what teams want to work on, I really research everything when it comes to the game of football.
It's amazing. Anything I mean, Winnipeg's looked pretty good.
Winnipeg looked really good without Kenny Lawler as well. Yeah. They're only going to get better. They're a team. You can tell they enjoy playing with each other. One thing I did see about Winnipeg that I haven't seen from any other teams is they celebrate together. They don't care who makes the play, and it's like you see other guys on film, someone else makes the play, the other guy's like mad he didn't make the play, so you can see a reason why they win, and those guys stay there because they enjoy. It looks like they enjoy being around each other.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Yeah, it's also like I don't know. I was talking to another reporter just before we had you on, and like we were both saying, like me being here in Calgary where there has been so much turnover, and then I look at Winnipeg and I'm like, no, like keeping the core group together, like maybe you will end up keeping some of those guys for an extra year, totally past their prime, but you can see just like what having those guys, like having them know that they succeeded together, you can see like just what an asset that is. You know what I mean?
Most definitely, because guys they take less to stay around each other to keep that same atmosphere. And we go back to the days when Calgary was Calgary. It wasn't a lot of turnover. It was a veteran-driven team, and you sprinkle the rookies in like how Winnipeg's doing right now. Yeah. That's the formula to win in the CFL, because you got to have culture. You got to have guys come in and understand that there's a certain way to do things, and this is how you do it. They don't know how to prepare. A lot of guys, young guys coming in, they don't know how to prepare for games, especially in the CFL. They're still trying to learn the rules of the game. So you have a lot of veterans that, you know, set the structure of how things are done, and, you know, guys fall in line.
Beautiful. Well, man, I'm gonna let you go, but I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk, man. And
No, anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime, man. I definitely enjoy, like, I love reading your articles and see the reports that you do, because I can tell you're interested in the CFL. You're not like, you know, you understand the football concept of things, and you're not just reporting the report. You really report what's going on. So I definitely appreciate everything you do for our league as well.
Man, I mean, that goes both ways. That means a lot hearing you say that. So thank you. People are gonna laugh at you wearing the Stampeder skirt.
Yeah, I promise you, this does not happen on purpose, and the odds of me having it on right now. But even if I'm not there right now, I still feel like I had 4 really good years playing in Calgary. So, you know, actually, I have all the teams I play for. I have apparel everywhere. So you never know what day. Like, I had Toronto stuff on yesterday working on it. So it is what it is. When the times that you wear them is when you're unemployed. You can wear whatever you want to wear. So.
That's hilarious. Well, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon. And,
no problem. Talk to you soon.
All right. That was Shawn Lemon. That was what an honor to have him on. That was very exciting. We had Darrin Bauming before that. I don't know. I'm legitimately, I can't wait to see Shawn Lemon back in the CFL playing somewhere. I just don't think a guy who had 14 sacks last year should be sidelined. He's too good a player. He's been around for too long. I want him to get openly. I will root for him to get to 100 sacks in his career, because I think that's an amazing accomplishment. Puts him in some pretty elite company. But that's a Hall of Famer right there. One of the guys who I don't think gets the respect necessarily from around the league, or at least in media circles, that he should, because he's an amazing player. But anyways, we're about an hour from kickoff with Edmonton and Saskatchewan. Really, really looking forward to that one. We're gonna try to figure out how we do these Sunday shows. But beyond that, thank you for listening. We will be back, I believe, Thursday morning with a new episode of, Live from the 55. Please like and subscribe and share with all your friends if you enjoy it. Thanks for listening, guys. Cheers.